finding male role models in cancer land, in these all these support groups and everywhere else, is difficult. So to have men who are willing to put themselves out there in public, to speak, to write about it, to share. Every time a guy does that, some other guy is out there being like, oh man, thank goodness I'm not the only one feeling these things. In the spring or late winter, this would have been right around January, February 2018, I started to just get super, super fatigued. And as I look back on it, I know that I was getting more and more fatigued throughout 2017, but I was 40 years old. I had, my working full time as a public relations and freelance writer. My wife was working full time as a teacher, and we had, our daughters were 12 and 10 at the time. So as I started to get more and more tired, I just chalked it up to midlife fatigue. And I had some bouts of depression, anxiety prior to cancer. So I just said, well, this is mental health. But then eventually it got to the point where, and so we were just kind of cruising through life. The biggest things I would say I identified mostly as being a husband and dad, and also just a writer and someone who enjoyed writing about others and putting the spotlight on other people. And then this fatigue just kept creeping more and more until, I'd walk up the stairs and my heart was just kind of pounding out of my chest. So finally, I was 40 at the time, or 41, and I had not seen my primary care doctor in, several years. I wasn't doing check-ins at that point or annual physicals because I didn't really feel like I had a need to. So I did finally call my primary care, and she said, hey, we need to do some blood work. Got to figure this out. Did some blood work. Turns out I was super anemic. Didn't have hardly any iron in my blood. And she said, we need to get you a colonoscopy. Have you noticed any bleeding anywhere? And I had not. So went in for a colonoscopy. And even at that time, between my primary care doctor and the gastroenterologist, no one was thinking cancer. I had looked it up, what are the causes of blood loss? A couple things. And cancer, of course, is on there, but, never, it certainly was not on the radar. So in March 22nd, 2018, I went in for a colonoscopy and had the procedure. And afterwards, the nurse took my wife and I and said, you need to see the doctor. Went into the doctor's office, and he said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have a pretty large mass in your ascending colon. And at the time, I couldn't tell you much about where the colon was or what it did. I was just, he said, you have a mass. It's about 9 or 10 centimeters. So 4 inches plus. We're going to need to refer you to a surgical oncologist, and we're sending off tissue samples for pathology, this and that. And he didn't say the word, but I'm hearing all this stuff like oncologist, and I'm just like, are you saying that I have cancer? And he looks at me and says, well, until the tests come back, I can't tell you 100%, but I'm 99% certain that you have colon cancer. And when I talk about when I use the phrase life asteroid, that's really what it was. You're just going along through your life, and then this asteroid comes and just blows everything up. And that was the day everything changed for us. The first period after a diagnosis, you really are in a physiological shock state. So I remember the first week reaching out to people, calling people and being like, yeah, I have cancer. We're going to do what we need to do. But it was kind of dreamlike. It was very surreal. And then after that, I was just kind of thrust into this very unfamiliar chute, right? You're down the chute into this cancer land. You need to have surgery. You got to talk about chemo. You're trying to learn all this stuff, and it's just overwhelming, so overwhelming and scary, right? We had little kids. I had no frame of reference that this was going to happen in my life, so it was crushing. And then my mental health really started to, go to some very dark places. So during 2018, so I had colon surgery, started on chemo. We thought I was stage 3 early on, but right away we did a scan after chemo, showed a lesion in my liver, metastatic tumor, and they could see that it was there prior to. They just didn't see it on the first scan. So there I was, stage 4 metastatic cancer patient. And, in terms of survival, when you're looking at colorectal cancer, if your stages 1 through 3, you're looking at 70+% survival, depending on your stage. You know, it's very good prognosis if you get it early, but once it spreads to other organs, often the liver, the lungs, other places, then the 5-year overall survival rate goes down to, you know, less than 15%. Just crippling anxiety and depression, very clinical. I thought I was going to have to go into inpatient hospital for my mental health, not even my cancer. So I had the first surgery, chemotherapy, and then I went for my first liver resection in the fall of 2018. And I was just at my lowest point. I was in a very dark place. I was checked out, isolated, couldn't make a phone call, couldn't even talk to people about it. I just thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to leave my kids behind. I'm a failure. Just all this like crushing emotional burden came down on me, because I had always viewed myself as a very capable, you know, strong person who was, you know, there for his wife and there for my kids. And this, you know, idea that now I was facing this life-threatening illness with really a terminal diagnosis, and I didn't know how to handle it. And my first instinct was to just leave. Like I wanted to just go into the woods and say, I don't want to be a burden. That's a theme that comes up a lot in Man with the Cancers. We don't want to be burdens to our family. And sometimes when you get a diagnosis like this, that's how you feel. So that first stretch was a very tough place to be. I'm really, really lucky because I have a wife and kids and family and friends who, when I told them, I don't want to burden you anymore, I just want to leave, like my wife is like, hell no. You're not leaving. We're going to love you through this and you're going to get better. So I say I'm lucky because a lot of men that I know don't have that support system. So when they want to run away, they just run away. But my family, they were like, you know, whatever we need to do to get through this, we'll do. So my wife really gave me that tough love conversation of like, hey, I will share this story. It's one that I share everywhere, which is one night talking to my wife. This is around Christmas 2018. Just had my liver surgery. I had drain tubes. Like I was a mess. And she was just encouraging me to like somehow get out of this pit, mental health pit. And I said, I just can't get over the idea of the kids remembering me as sick, being on the couch, being on the bed. And she said, I'm not afraid they're going to remember you as sick. I'm afraid they're going to remember you as sad. It was just that cancer had taken me into a very depressed and anxious place. And so I couldn't snap my fingers and just crawl out of that pit, right? At that moment, like, oh, okay, I'm good now. But I heard what she said, and it kind of cracked me open to the place where I could be like, all right, like, I can't do this by myself. I need to get help. And that was the turning point where I got over that barrier of being like, I don't want to burden people, like, you know, asking for help. So I started asking for help everywhere. I went to the Dempsey Center here in Maine. I got counseling, individual counseling, group counseling. I started reaching out to groups online, especially Colon Town and the Colon Club. And by accepting help and getting out there and saying that I couldn't do this on my own, I started to get better, because all of a sudden I was meeting people that were helping me. And I wasn't alone. I realized that so many people are going through this challenge. So many people with kids and people in, you know, at my age and even earlier. So that was really the turning point that started leading me towards my purpose. And how I finally really got revved up about my purpose was, as my mental health got better, I started seeing what I call the 3-to-1 rule in cancer land. So in all these cancer support communities, whether it be the Dempsey Center or Colon Town or places online, usually it's at least 3 women to 1 man. So women are much more comfortable in general accessing these supports that are out there, networking, being out there and having conversations with other patients, getting second opinions, like all this stuff. And the question that I had was, you know, where are the men at in these support spaces? Is it possible that I'm like one of the only few men who like is getting crushed by this and like needs help? And I knew in my heart that the answer was no, that I knew that there was other guys out there struggling like me. and who could use the benefits of these support places. But maybe these places, for whatever reason, just weren't connecting with the men, right? Like, so there was barriers. Men needed the help, but they're not accessing it. And that was the issue. And I was like, okay, I was looking for a place to give back. And I was coming out of this mental health pit, and I'm like, I'm going to help these other men who are out there in that place where I was, but maybe they don't know where to go.
Hey everybody, my name is Trevor Maxwell. I am a stage 4 colon cancer survivor, and I'm the founder of Man Up to Cancer.
I knew the idea was going to be man up to cancer because we want to take back that phrase. To me, man up means bringing your toughness, because you're going to need every bit of your toughness to get through cancer, but also being willing to accept help, having the bravery and courage to accept help along the way, and then give it when you can. So I said, I'm going to do something called Man Up to Cancer, but I don't exactly know what it's going to be yet. I knew I wanted to have a group, and I knew I wanted to do a podcast and have a website with like resources. So I just started, I actually started putting up a Facebook group, and I developed the framework. Everything about Man Up to Cancer uses the wolf and the wolf pack theme. And the whole idea behind that was we need to be wolves for one another going through cancer. Wolf packs are very social. If there's a sick or injured wolf, the pack is going to take care of that wolf, and they're not going to just abandon them. And if that wolf dies, they have ceremony. They remember that wolf. And I'm like, as men going through cancer, why aren't we together like this? We need a pack. And so I had fun with it. I was just like, started putting wolf stuff everywhere and be like, hey, be part of the cancer wolf pack. And then one really important thing happened. So anyone can have an idea like this, but you need people to buy in and like help spread it. My buddy Joe Bullock from Durham, North Carolina, was that first follower who came in and was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Can I help you build this and spread the word? And I was like, yeah, come on board. And to this day, Joe has been the lead administrator of the Facebook group. So we have the private Facebook group, Man Up to Cancer, The Howling Place, which is for male patients, survivors, caregivers, any type of cancer, any age, any background, anywhere in the world. We have about 2,000 people, men, in that group now. And Joe has just been critical to building that up and really facilitating the community piece of it so that I could do the podcast and the website and fundraising and all these other, components of Man Up to Cancer. And so the two of us have worked really well to grow the community and to facilitate it. And then I've also been able to do these other pieces along the way. So it started with the Facebook group. Then started the podcast. I've done 68 episodes. And all through this, though, I'm going through cancer. Like, I still have active cancer. I've now had 5 major surgeries. I've gone through a bunch of chemo. So I haven't really had a break from that, the physical treatments of cancer. My mental health has been a lot better. I still have my days, of course, where I have ups and downs, and I throw a pity party occasionally, but I just don't dwell there like I did. And if I do, then I know it's time to use the tools in the toolbox. So yeah, I guess I just mentioned that is that we've sort of had to grow organically and slowly, which is good. That's the way it should grow, like a community like this. But a piece of that has just been because I've been going through, I've been in the trenches with the treatments I've been going through. So I've really wanted Man Up to Cancer to just kind of slowly grow. I mean, we're not about numbers. Like, yes, we want to help the guys out there who need it. But to me, it's about the quality of the relationships and the quality of the people who come into the group. And so.
What is it, Trevor, about men where without your organization, we tend to stuff it? And I've been that way. I mean, I've been living with leukemia for 26 years. And so little kids, duties as a father, a breadwinner, just try to push on and not talk about it much.
We are conditioned as men in America and in many other cultures to, when a challenge comes along in life, that we're supposed to be able to fix it or solve it. That we are supposed to be strong and tough and, that we can handle our business, right? And so that is not necessarily a bad thing. Like if you have a home improvement project or something that you want to fix in your house or something like that, or something, for a lot of things, that rugged individualism is a positive. But with cancer, it's not. So men who isolate going through cancer have they have worse problems with mental health, anxiety, depression, all that stuff, more substance abuse. They are more apt to have broken relationships, and they have worse medical outcomes. So there's real consequences here. I think a lot of men just have that instinct. It's like, well, this is a problem. I'm not going to burden others. I just need to focus on somehow I'm going to fix this on my own, and I shouldn't need help. And that is a killer. That's a killer. If you think like that going into cancer, it's going to be a really tough road. So I don't spend a lot of time, right, like thinking too much about my own evolution because I'm living it day to day. But when I step back, I guess I could say that it's really, for me, this whole doing Man Up to Cancer and now seeing how that, I mean, first of all, for me, I have more support now than I've ever had, right? Like I have this wolf pack. I have these guys that if I'm having a rough day, I can go online and, get all this love and support, which is huge for me. So I'm just so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the men in the wolf pack and others that I've met through this Man Up to Cancer journey who support me and my family. So that's number one. And I guess the second thing I'll say is what I really wanted to do was get some redemption. Like I felt like when I checked out from my family and when I was going through all that depression and anxiety, I felt like I let them down. And I know that that's not, I know they don't look at it that way. And I don't either. Like I don't look back and get upset with myself for the way that I was, because I needed to go through that dark place to do the work that I do now. Like I wouldn't have this purpose without going through that hell. So I'm thankful for it now. But as I started to get out of it and improve my mental health, what I wanted to do was show my daughters especially that life is going to knock you down. Life is going to get you to your knees, whether it's cancer or something else. Like you don't have a choice. Like that's what's going to happen. But you do have a choice on how you respond to that. So I wanted to show them that life knocked me down, but that I could get up and I could do something with that pain, that I could make some change in the world that's positive, that's loving, and that's helpful, so that no matter how long I live, because my prognosis is still not good, right? So if I have another year or two, or whether I get through this and live another 40, that I can, on that day, whenever that is, I can say, you know what? I got up and did something to give them that example, so that when the hard times come in their life, they can look to me as a role model too and say, you know what, look what dad did. Going through a life-threatening illness when you have a family like this, and our girls are 17 and 15 now, I'm so grateful to be here with them. But like, I guess what I'm saying is like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? It's hard. It's really hard, and we can't ignore that. But at the same time, I think I have my heart and my spirit and my mind have all kind of evolved to live with this and to accept, like, if I progress and pass away soon, like, of course, like that's never going to be okay. Like it's all going to be grief for the people left behind. But what I want everyone to know and feel is, and hopefully is, that the joy of having me in their lives, outweighs the sadness of having to say goodbye to me. So for me personally, I have adopted a very present mindset. I am very in the here and now, and I am grateful for every day. I'm grateful for all the blessings we have in our lives, and I feel like I'm on bonus time, and I'm grateful to just keep doing what I'm doing, first and foremost with my family, my Sarah and the girls, and how wonderful our family is. So it's a very present, grateful mindset. And again, that's not all the time. You can't live with that kind of mindset all the time. Like I'll get pissed off. I'll get sad. I'll get upset, but for the most part, I'm much more present and grateful than I was. And I've always been a grateful person, but now it's even more so. Like I'm out walking the dog and just wondering at nature and being here. And, you think those big thoughts and big feelings when you're living stage 4. And I'm grateful for that. I didn't see all these silver linings, which there are many. I didn't see early on in cancer, and I would have said, like, don't even talk to me about the gifts of cancer. But now that I'm almost 5 years in, I'm definitely accepting of them. So I think I'm in a good place. I think I'm doing the best that I can. I think our family's doing the best that we can with a really tough situation. And doing Man Up to Cancer and being able to have those relationships and being able to bring something positive in some lives out there in cancer land outside of my family is something that I'm most proud of. And it's an honor and a privilege to do it.